In this video, I'm going to share when I think universal basic income is actually going to be a real thing in our societies. Back in the day, many years ago, when the industrial age, industrial revolution, when basically factory workers had factories to work in to, weld steel and, make cars essentially, and just this kind of almost technological revolution. But before we got to the digital age, basically it was, hey, spending time for money. And if you got to work, then you got paid. And if you got paid, you basically had resources to trade in the economy to then afford XYZ, bread, milk, cheese, what have us. Eventually, it went from basically, hey, spending time for money. Now there were other programs that were introduced where, hey, we don't want basically this divide between the top of the top class and the poorest of the poor. There must be something in the middle. And so over the years, there were programs such as welfare, food stamps, in different states it's known as different things, but basically where you can get assistance, right? If you have, let's say, a disability, you can have certain, kind of income or cash flow coming in. If you're unemployed, but you were employed at some point and you're looking for employment, then you could also be earning, something while you're not doing nothing, but the understanding is you're just not actively working or let's say contributing to the economy, but you're still able to get, money basically, which can be, again, going back into the economy. But what it really is you're able to afford theoretically the bare necessities and otherwise. And, the amounts that you're distributed, if that can afford it or not, is a totally separate discussion. So universal basic income, what is it? It's basically, obviously you came this far in the video, I would hope you already know, but it's basically just saying, hey, everyone can basically get a certain amount of, money that's distributed to them. Let's just call it monthly. Say it's a $500 a month, $1,000 a month, what have us, right? And the understanding is that everyone gets this $1,000. And I'm just going to say $1,000 a month just to keep the example simple. So with the 1,000, there's multiple studies that have gone on in just general with, in different countries. And it seems like, okay, hey, it's not like people are just getting money and spending it on, illicit activities and just blowing it and not contributing to society. It's more like, hey, people are buying back their time to spend their time with kids, to maybe upskill, to maybe learn a new skill, maybe take an opportunity to go get trained further to then allow a higher income potential, because all they really needed was just a little assistance or support to basically have that gap in their scheduled time, what have us, where money was affording time not to be spent for further money. So now with that recouped time, they're able to spend their time on other things. Very straightforward. So when I think it's going to come to society, with the caveat and the most important point being that as technology improves, right? So as AI, as just everything, AI being artificial intelligence, these things that everyone says, oh my gosh, they're replacing jobs, like, oh, the cashiers are gone and now there's self-checkout and, AI is replacing everything and blah, 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 right? The point is, they means like the government or the system or like, economists, right? Like the understanding theoretically would be that as technology improves, the productivity, right? The productivity per employee would be astronomically higher. And because of that, why would we need to work 40 hours a week? If you could do the same 40 hours task in, let's say, 20 hours, right? Just an example, like instead of just saying 1 hour. If you could do it in half the time, then basically half of it, you're basically going to work, you get paid, but let's say you get paid half the rate. And then let's say this UBI, universal basic income, you get it as the second half. So you're still earning the same amount of money, but humans are working less. Everyone's kind of happier because they're working less, but financial needs are met. So what's the issue? The point being, whether you want to call it a capitalistic society or, greed of, whatever, right? This video is not political. This video is going to be more of just factual, of just the logical thought of when it would happen. So the understanding being that, hey, if you can squeeze out more productivity for the same 40 hours you're putting in terms of the value, and when I say productivity, I mean to say just like GDP, gross domestic product, the understanding of productivity is not like you're doing something faster only. It's the understanding that you're doing something faster such that more things in terms of throughput are able to be done within the same amount of time. Which means what? Which means the cost of producing the one unit goes down heavily. At the same time, assuming demand is also, let's just say, present, because now folks have more money to spend with their time. In economics, they basically say as folks have more leisure time, whichever way you want to pronounce it, they basically end up spending more. There's nothing right or wrong, it's just factual. So if folks have more money now, right, you're able to create more in the society or the economy. And if folks are able to consume more, then who's making more money? Right? So if you look at it from a very simplistic example, just say like one owner owns everything in the economy and you're creating, then technically that one owner at the top is benefiting by so much more activity within the economy. Now, is it right or wrong is a different story. But if we replace that one person who owns everything with a few players that own, basically everything, which is, just how the world works. Like whether we hate it or not, or people hate billionaires, again, different topic, different scenario. But from a purely capitalistic standpoint, why in the world would folks, with power, and if you have power, you have money, but folks with money may not have power. So the folks who have power, why would you let go of the power you have? So there's two options. One is you can give universal basic income, with the caveat being that maybe that money still goes back to the same overlord or the same owner, where it's just being funneled upwards. So now there's a bigger gap between the richest of the rich and, everyone else, literally. Or case two, you just never have this universal basic income and people are just forced to work, and the same system pretty much goes on, with the only difference being literally nothing, where the gap between the rich and the poor just becomes wider. The other issue is that unless if it works like Social Security, where Social Security, how it works to my level of understanding and seeing it firsthand, basically every year, based on inflation, they'll say, the government, let's say inflation is X%. Let's just call it, 2 to 3% they say is, oh, it's on average. Like, no, it's not. Let's be real. If you're, a real person spending money, let's say it's 10%. I'll go that high. I don't care. So 10%, are your wages going up, or income or salaries or whatever, by 10%? Usually that's not the case. With UBI as well, universal basic income, let's say they give you $1,000. Is it every month? So in a year you're getting 12K. So is the understanding then the next year you're going to get 13,200, and then the next year, whatever that math is, let me not waste our time, right? So like, are you going to get 10% more every time? It's not a guarantee. So the understanding is that even if you have universal basic income, if your purchasing power goes down over time, you're still going to be able to afford less. So your standard of living is not going to be able to keep up, even with getting the supplement. To answer the direct question, if I was forced to say, when will universal basic income come into our societies? I would say never. And I would say never, or with the caveats that I said, where basically it's not like it's that great of a deal. Now, is it going to be like unemployment or, welfare or other type of programs where you got to prove like, hey, I don't have a job, so I need money? The point of UBI is it's universal. There are no requirements. Everyone should get it. But if everyone has everything, if everyone has $1 million today, is it really worth $1 million worth of purchasing power before everyone got their million, right? If one person wins a lottery, they can afford a lot of things. If everyone in society has $100 million deposited into their account, it doesn't mean that that same 100 million could buy that same $100 million worth of, money. And the quick thing is that the richer you are, maybe you don't want to spend or need to spend, or you have enough to spend and you just want to save it all. The understanding is if that you give UBI to richer folks, then they're going to invest it into markets, and it's not going to go back into the economy. It's not going to go back into the workers or the people that are on the ground, or like circulate. It's called the velocity of money, right? Within the economy, it's not going to circulate. But then the poorer people are probably, let's just say, stereotypically going to spend. And so they are going to, have this concept of GDP go up because they're giving value to society, like giving money back into society, which then creates a next step and the next step. And as prices go up and up and up, like it looks like, wow, like things are happening, things are moving, but like nothing's actually really changing if you think about it. And this really goes back to the concept, like money's not real, nothing's real. It's all about, what do we value said money at? If the world had, like the pandemic times, right? Like obviously money was circulating to keep the economies going. But if everyone values it at, hey, this economy is, if it's more like, hey, there's a meteor shower that's coming, someone could give you $500 million to go hide in your basement to protect themselves. But you may be like, dude, I don't even want you here because that 500 mil doesn't mean anything. So that's its own, kind of what does money mean to you kind of scenario. With that, if you came this far, thanks as always. See you in the next one. Peace.